I said, this is not for me. And I swore off men for life. I'm never going to get married again. I'm going to be single forever. And then I ran into his father with my ex-husband, by the
Yeah,
way.
tell me about that because that was a kind of an unusual situation.
So before we got divorced, although we were in the middle of a divorce, we were trying to be amicable. We didn't have a house together, we didn't have children together, but we did have 20 concert tickets together with most of his coworkers and friends. And we were just brand new to Arizona, so we didn't really know anyone. And we went to a rock show, a 21 and over at Super Bowl Sunday. It was January 28th and of 1996, actually. And it was hot. We walked in, there's all these people, and this guy came up and said, "Can you listen to our band play?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm with this huge group." "Oh no, come sit up front and you can see us play." And great seats. There was a fountain, there was umbrella, and in Arizona, you need an umbrella. So we went and watched. It was the worst band I've ever seen or heard in my life, but I was not going to move because the seats were great. Then the next band came on, and it was his dad's band. And he was singing directly to me the whole set.
Do you think he saw you and was singing directly to you, or that he just was looking in your direction?
At that time, I thought his girlfriend or wife or somebody was behind me, but he told me, he said he saw me when I walked in, and he looked at his bandmates, Sean and Bobby at the time, maybe even Mason, said, "See that woman right there? I'm going to marry her."
Really?
And I
You hear
didn't.
those stories, but I don't really know anybody that ever happened to.
So that's exactly what they all said. And they backed him up on it. And this is in 1996.
Now, what did you think of his music after hearing that lousy band? Were they great?
The whole entire band had such showmanship and such stage presence when they came out. Literally, that voice was so angelic and powerful. I literally thought his wife or girlfriend, because people, I mean, I kept turning around like, why is he staring at me? But then people came up to me saying, "Oh, he likes you." It's very spiritual. It was like a huge connection because I felt like we were locked, but I could feel his. I empathed.
And you were with your soon to be ex husband?
Well, he was running off somewhere else at that time, thank God.
Would you say that it was love at first sound when you heard that voice?
Love at first sight,
Oh,
because it
really?
was more of a,
So as soon as you saw him and then heard that voice, you were hooked?
yeah, definitely. It was so spiritual. I can't even explain it. It was that connection when you can look in someone's eyes and they're actually singing every word to you. It it really was a spiritual connection. I was really taken back by that. And he's not a type of guy at that time that I would even be attracted to. He had these little skinny dreadlocks all in his hair, and he was really linky with tattoos. I do like the tall, tattooed, and I always loved reggae, but he just wasn't the normal type I would date. So, anyways, the next band that came on, they got off. I stayed there, and the next band that came on, the Roadies. I ran a lot of apartments and real estate, and worked with a home builder. So one of my employees, her boyfriend was in a band, and said, "Oh, there's Amy's boss. Let's bring her backstage." So I went backstage, and there they were. And the guys were telling me that, they had interest in a record deal, and all this was going on. And Chester was sitting there. And went and talked to him, and he was sick. He was sick with like 103 temperature. He's blind as a bat without his glasses, and I didn't know that. And he said, "I could see you perfectly." And we just started talking, but then the bouncers came because he wasn't 21, and they were rushing him out. And they were rushing him out right before we could exchange phone numbers, and we were really connecting. And I thought, oh, well, that's sad. Bye.
You probably didn't think you'd ever see him again, right?
Never thought in a million years. The band had their CDs, and they said, "Here, would you like a CD?" And I said, "No, I support local bands." And then here comes the ex-husband drunk and all
Oh,
his friends. So I made all of them buy CDs. So I think they were like $5 a piece. And on the back of the CD had their manager's phone number the whole time. However, I was so in a daze of it all, no pun intended. The band was called Great A's, but I went to real estate in the office the next day to work, and everyone was like, "How was the concert? And how did Anthony do?" Because they were very concerned with him going with me. And I said, "Oh, it was great, but something really incredible happened to the singer from this amazing band." Who I had no idea at the time. And when I said the name, they're like, "They're the number one local band in all of Arizona." And I said, "Oh, well, that's cool, but he sang to me the whole time. How am I ever going to see this guy again? I have to see him again." And they said, "Look him up for sale by owner in real estate. We do it all the time." So here, and I was like, "That's crazy. I look like a stalker." But they really talked me into it. And in the phone number, in the phone book, in a phone book. When's the last time we've looked at a phone book? I looked up every Bennington, and everyone like stopped working, and they made me call every
Every
Benning.
one of them till you found them.
And I got his sister, who recently was married, Renee, and she went by Brugman. And now she just, for some reason, felt something. I don't know. She goes, "Yes, that's my brother." And I said, "I know this is going to sound crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not a stalker. I'm sure he meets a ton of people." I didn't know what a number one local band was. Was it that big? I mean, I grew up with Pennywise. I grew up with Slash. I grew up with, suicidal tendencies. I don't know. They were all just my friends, or that's what they did. I never looked at it as number one.
So you did eventually, obviously, hook up with him.
Well, I left my phone number, and I said, "If he remembers me, have him call me, but you'll never hear from me again, because I don't want to be
Right.
that person."
So obviously he
The
called you.
next day.
So then you got married, and at the time he already had two sons, correct? From a previous relationship, he had one, and then he adopted her son.
Well, no, we didn't even know at that time. So we got together. 2 months later, we were living together. 9 months later, we were married. But right prior to us getting married, we found out that he was potentially a father to a girlfriend from high school's son. But we didn't get a DNA test at that time. We offered, but everyone was broke, and we wanted to split it. Didn't She didn't have the money, and we weren't going to pay for the whole thing at the time, because we couldn't afford it either. We thought, well, if he is the father, we'll reimburse her, and we'll take it from there. But years later happened, and we were married for about 4.5 years, and 6 years before Lincoln Park even really hit. And then, of course, when things like that happen, she came forward, and we're so grateful she did, because he's got a beautiful son, Jamie, who's my son's brother. And they adopted Isaiah, his brother, as well. So he's got two older siblings now, from her, and her and I get along just fine.
Well, that's all beautiful. So far we're on a real nice roll here. So you've got a new marriage, and everything's going smooth. And
it wasn't smooth at first.
It was not,
It takes
because I
time.
remember when you brought him one day to Cafe Roma, right? When you were in, I don't know if you'd married him yet, or we were about to marry him. Remember, we all went to lunch.
I thought you were talking about the kids and all of us baby mamas getting along. That takes time.
Oh, that's a whole
That's
other
a
issue.
whole
No, I'm
other
talking about when you brought
roller
Chester
coaster.
to lunch with me,
We were.
and I think you were just about to get married then, and he was so adorable and so crazy about you.
Oh, he's
And-
definitely one of my soulmates. I believe we have multiple.
And then I remember it was probably maybe 2001 or two. When did they become, after you moved to LA and he met the guys from Agora Hills, then he became the lead singer for Lincoln Park. But were they already in existence when he joined them?
They were called Zero at the time. However, we were still in Arizona, so he had recently left Gray Days and was starting to do an electronic band with Coney, a friend of his. And I stayed in touch with Scott Harrington and different attorneys and people in the industry to keep his name and voice relevant. And Scott Harrington would send us music, or people would send us music, and we got this music in Arizona. And I said, "Oh, this is it." And it was his birthday, and we just got back from Mexico, and we put him in the studio, and we played it for Jeff Blue and Scott Harrington over the phone while we were still living in Arizona. And they said, "Well, we're going to FedEx, can you FedEx the music out?" And we said, "No, we're going to fly him out with the music." And they were Zero, and they all grew up together, and as fate had it, he joined the band, and then it became Hybrid Theory, and then
Wow,
it became
that-
Linkin
that-
Park.
Hybrid Theory, the album itself, was one of my favorites. I mean, it's one of everybody's favorites, right, Ashley? Ashley's our engineer, and she's going, I love it.
It's
But
mine too. I
wasn't
heard
that?
it.
I mean, that was a wonderful. I mean, I think it sold like 5 million copies or something. It was extremely
Well,
popular,
now I don't even
and
think you could keep count. It's like,
yeah, it's probably especially now after what happened.
well,
But
even before.
it's just an incredible album. It's one of those,
Thank you.
you know, every group has a certain album that's the, like Michael Jackson's Thriller or
Hmm.
Carole King's Tapestry. There's always that one, and I think that was their best. They were their best then. Weren't they great? I mean,
It
wow.
was just so new. And I think they're all of them are so talented that I think they continue to do such great things and make great music and success.
So now we have Draven. Little Draven came about in what?
2002.
2002. So my little Draven over here, my little grandson. How fun was it for you growing up with a rock star dad?
I mean, I didn't think about it too much. Like, it's just my dad. So, I mean, I didn't like going to the concerts because, like, I wouldn't spend time with him. He'd be up on stage all the time. And I don't know, just do something in the back. And then,
Yeah,
so, like,
I don't think people realize that the kids of these rock stars, they're up on the stage getting screamed at and yelled at and things thrown at them, like good things, panties and money or whatever. And you're in the back dressing room probably playing games or being on your little game board
yeah.
thing. So you didn't see a lot of the concerts, like you didn't go out in front and sit in the audience?
I mean, not until, like, I was a little older. And, like, but, I don't, or, like, I didn't remember him. But no, I didn't really think about it too much. Just like it was just his job.
Well, how much fun was it going to Ozfest and all those things? I mean, you went on tour a lot, you and your mom. Wasn't it fun being on tour buses and going from city to city and meeting all these other famous rock and roll people? Did that mean anything to you at the time, or it was just your parents' friends?
Just parents, friends.
Isn't
It
that
didn't, yeah, it didn't really mean anything.
He was so
Um,
little, so
yeah.
young to even probably
So you
remember
probably don't
that.
even remember. You were only 4 years old when your dad sang with Paul McCartney at the Grammys. Wasn't that one of the most special moments? I mean, when they sang Yesterday together, I mean, I was like sobbing because I just couldn't believe how beautiful their voices were together. And
And he loved the Beatles so much.
oh, but that was a special moment. I will never forget that. Have you ever watched it, Draven? Have you ever seen a YouTube of that?
No, I think I should look it up.
You should. It was an incredible, I thought, incredible moment. Didn't he take a little break and sing with the Stone Temple Pilots?
He did.
And when was that? What year was that?
That was not too long ago, but I love the guys. I love Stone Temple Pilots, but Scott, I love Scott. So I was very upset. We got in a fight about that. So I said, "Listen, Chester, you can't take Scott's place and he could never take your place." And we had words over that one. But you know what? Mary did tell me. Mary Wyland is a very good friend of mine, and I love her very much. That's Scott's ex-wife. And she said, Scott was really happy that it was Chester. And he told her that while he was alive. He's no
Wow.
longer with us. So I'm very grateful to hear that now.
Now, your marriage broke up after what, about 9 years, huh? 8, 9 years?
We were together for a little over 10, but I served him with divorce papers shortly after 9 years, 3 months, 9 years, 4 months.
What was the biggest factor? Would you have to say it was the lifestyle that you just really got tired of the lifestyle? Was it his drug problems that became an issue raising a son?
I wasn't going to beat him, and I wasn't going to join him. It was not the path that I wanted for my child and I. Growing up and being around all of that, I wasn't going to put up with adultery, and I wasn't going to put up with drugs. And I'm not innocent, and I can say this in front of you. I smoked pot. I quit when you were born, but I never really got into drugs. And so again, if you don't join them, they're going to find somebody else who will. Or they're going to, I was raising a son and he was on the road. It just
Well,
happens. It's the
as it
industry.
worked out and he remarried and had 3 other children, but you all came together at some point and made peace, and you spent a lot of time with your dad and his new wife and your three step siblings, correct?
Yeah.
So you were still a part of his life. What do you remember most about his music that you love so much?
I mean, now it's more just I get to hear his voice and that I can't. So I didn't really listen to a lot of it before because it was like dad's music. It was his job. I mean, I listened to it, but it wasn't something like I don't know. I felt like I just didn't listen to it as like on like a regular
Well, you take it for
basis.
granted. That's your dad's music. You probably listen to other artists that you like,
Yeah.
right? And their parents probably wondered why their kids didn't listen to their music and
Yeah.
listen to, Linkin Park. So I think it's what you grew up with.
Yeah.
So, but you do respect his talent and the fact that he's made such an impression on the world, musically speaking.
No, yeah. I think he was extremely talented, and I listen to it a lot more now, and I really enjoy it.
Do you have musical ability too? Did you inherit a voice?
I mean, I don't. If I did, I don't use it
So you
very
don't.
much, so I wouldn't know.
It's not something you want to do to be a singer or a
No,
songwriter.
no, yeah, keep it to the shower.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
place. That's where all of us sing in the shower. I'm a star in the shower. And now we're going to end on a somber note, but yet a very positive one because your dad's suicide has made you an advocate for suicide prevention and working with young kids whose parents have also experienced that. And I'm sure you're proud of the work you're doing and the kids that you're guiding.
Yeah, I I mean, we got into it a couple months afterwards, and just hearing the stories is really nice, and hearing how it helps people or someone brings it up, and it's really cool.
Well, how did you find out about it, Samantha? Because you didn't find out by a phone call.
One of my girlfriends heard it on the radio or TMZ, I think, and no one called us. So when she called me, she wouldn't really tell me. I had to get her to spit it out, and I screamed, yanked all electronics, and had to have my business managers and my son's godfather help us verify who's the guitar player for the Deftones, Stephen Carpenter, and that's how we found out. To this day, nobody's called us.
Which is kind of shocking since it was your father. You'd think somebody would have had the wherewithal to contact you directly so that you could have heard it directly from your stepmother or somebody else. It's not even a year yet, so it's still pretty raw. It'll be a year in July. What's your last memory of your dad before that happened? When was the last time prior to that that you'd spent time with him?
It was, I think, almost exactly a week before, and I went over to his new house and I spent 5 days there, which it was really nice to spend time with him. And we just did things like we swam in the pool, and it was just normal. We went rock climbing. That's something that we usually did, and hung out with my siblings and him, and just we had a really good time.
And he was clean and sober at that time, wasn't he?
For a long time since then, yeah.
So that must have made you feel good and hopeful that things were going great. I know he was still real depressed, Samantha, about Chris Cornell's death because he was close to you guys, right?
Not to us, that was his relationship with his new wife at the time. What is so disturbing, if I might say, is, through the years of being divorced, we were constantly in therapy for custody, for this, for business. We were business partners. We shared in lots of things over the years. So we healed almost everything, and I got my best friend back. And I was so proud of him. I always thought I'd get that phone call one day, but then I knew we made it in the clear. He was sober for, God, 3 to 4 years, 2.5, 4 years. I mean, that would be cutting him short, giving him only 2.5. He was sober.
That's a beautiful thing because he struggled for so many years prior to
But
that.
to go to that rehab was just shocking when we found out. And he called me from rehab, and he said, when I get out of here, I want to take you and Draven out to dinner, and I'm going to tell you everything. And at that time, I was kind of really upset because Draven was 13, and I was like, wow, this is not a conversation for a 13-year-old. He shared his depression. He shared how therapy, he stayed in longer in the rehab to work, he needed to stay longer, and we were grateful that he did. And I felt like he overcame all of that. Thank God he sat us both down and told us everything he did, because it would have been my word with his dad's word, or whatever the band or anybody wants to say, whatever they're, I mean, he could have told all of us his own story and they could all be different, but what he told Draven and I to our faces, and consistently, even on Draven's 15th birthday in April, and he loved coming to our Malibu house, we got to forgive each other for everything we both done in our marriages. I had my friend back. I had one
That's
of
so
my
beautiful.
I've known him longer than I haven't known him.
Right.
And that's what I think people forget. Yes, I'm the ex-wife. Yes, we did a lot of things together, but I've known him longer than I haven't known him in my lifetime now.
Plus, you were there from the very beginning, the whole inception of Lincoln Park and the whole developing of his career. Near the end there, he had just done a new album, right, Draven? Was he talking to you about that last week when you were there? Did you talk about his new album and the work he was doing?
Yeah, he played some songs in the car, and he let me listen to those. And I think, yeah, it was already out by then, but I remember earlier, before it was out, he let me listen to some of the like rough versions of it too. So it's like hearing it rough to all composed was something like that was something that like we went over in the car. And
I think just the idea that you have those memories is something that you'll always have. I mean, he has so many fans that miss him and loved his voice and his music. And it must have been fun to drive with him and just hear all the stuff before the public heard it. Because I remember when we all went to lunch one time at that country club near your house, and he was just working on a new album. And I'm trying to think which song it was that he sang for us at the table that day. And I remember thinking, oh, that's a hit. That was great. And of course, I think it was Numb.
Oh, it must.
It was Numb. And of course, we all know that became a big hit. But it was fun just to hear it before it ever came out. So that has to have been a great part of your childhood, hearing all this music before everyone else heard it. I was at the funeral with both of you, and I think that it could have been handled a little differently. But obviously, being that you were the ex-wife and the current wife had children of her own with him, did you feel slighted, Draven?
I mean, I think we were a little, yeah, I don't think we were in the best situation. I think we were pushed off a little to the side and like very separated with the rest of my family.
Yeah, I noticed that because we were kind of off to the side, weren't we?
Literally.
But I think the most important thing to remember is that he was clean and sober at the end. I think that the autopsy showed that he had no drugs in his system.
And I really, as his ex-wife with a lot of history, I think I have the right to say, and maybe not, but it's my opinion, I really don't like him being the face of depression, because he was so much more than that. He was a father, he was a son, he was a best friend, he was a musician, he was a philanthropist. He touched so many people's lives that we can't just remember him as the face of depression. It's insulting.
Chester Bennington was an amazing, incredible talent, and he will live on through his beautiful, wonderful son, Draven, and we all miss and love him.
Very much.
So is there anything you'd like to say before we leave, Draven?
Love you, Dad.
Samantha?
Just be in peace.
Be in peace, Chester. We miss you.